Erik Jones has announced his 2022 plans, and NASCAR might not only be heading to World Technology Race with the NASCAR Cup Series season, but might be headed to the LA Coliseum in the future as well. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to another video. We have quite a few stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go and just jump straight onto those really quickly. We're going to start off with Ken Schrader, as Ken Schrader is going to be racing the ARCA race at Daytona, I believe, this weekend. Ken Schrader, the last time he raced in ARCA was back in 2019 at Daytona International Speedway, where he actually started on the pole, but unfortunately finished back in 8th position. Now, I believe Daytona is a dirt track, so I do think that dirt experience is going to matter as well. And Ken Schrader has won quite a few races here at Daytona in the past as well. And I would not be surprised to see if Ken Schrader would run really well. It's also another pretty solid competitive car in the field. I think the goal for Ken Schrader, though, finish in the top 10 of the race. I know the field is not as competitive for a guy who's not raced in a couple years. I think a top 10 for him will be really solid. I'm happy to see that Ken Schrader is coming back to race in ARCA. I'm wishing the best of luck and welcome Ken Schrader back to the ARCA Series. And maybe in the future, we'll see his team return. Because the last time his team also ran was around the time Brandon Grosso drove for the team. Will Rogers made a couple starts. So it's really cool, though, to see that we're going to see Ken Schrader make his return to the ARCA Menard Series. And now we're going to go and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Jordan Anderson. As Jordan Anderson is going to be racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Daytona later this weekend. This team actually was supposed to make their debut the last time we heard Daytona International before they got rained out. This will be, I believe, their first super speed race this team has ran. And Jordan, I believe, will running his second race in a row. This is the first time Jordan has run multiple races in a season. And last week, Jordan got his first top 15 finish as a driver in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So it seems like these cars are pretty competitive. Don't be surprised if Jordan Anderson has a very strong potential to run up front in this race. I would not be shocked if he potentially gets the top 10. If he can avoid the big one, I think he's going to have a very strong opportunity in competing. I'm really happy to see that Jordan's running more Xfinity Series races. I like Jordan Anderson a lot, what he's been doing this year, especially bringing different drivers like Erik Jones into the team, Tyler Reddick into the team, among other drivers into this team to get a little more experience. Josh Berry as well into the team to help this team get up to speed. And I think it's really helped the team overall, especially on points. I think that's one of the reasons why we're starting to see Jordan Anderson run a lot more, because he's in a much better position when it comes to owners points. So I'm really happy to see that Jordan is running in the NASCAR Xfinity Series once again. Really happy to see that, and welcome Jordan Anderson once again to the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And now we're going to go on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Tim Richmond. As Tim Richmond has suffered a broken tibia and a fractured ankle in a crash at Michigan International Speedway, and unfortunately he is out indefinitely. If you watched the ARCA race this past weekend at Michigan International Speedway on Friday evening, there was some retaliation to happen. Early in the race, Drew Dollar had put Thad Moffitt in the wall. Drew Dollar in the 15 had put Thad Moffitt in the 46 into the outside wall. No caution was thrown for that. Then Thad Moffitt thought it was the perfect idea to go ahead and retaliate Drew Dollar at 200 miles an hour at Michigan International Speedway. And because this collected Tim Richmond in the crash. And a lot of people thought that Tim Richmond was mad, but Tim Richmond was doing what he's basically, he was opening up. There was images that surfaced online showing that the interior of the car did not look good. I want to say one thing. It is honestly ridiculous, and the things I've seen in ARCA this year have been absolutely ridiculous, some of the things that the drivers have been doing. There is no reason to retaliate a high-speed track like that, especially that these ARCA cars are not as safe. There is no reason to retaliate against a driver. I understand you're upset, but you do not retaliate at a big track like this. You can get away with that at a short track because a short track isn't as big of a problem. But when you're at a high-speed track like Michigan International Speedway, you shouldn't be retaliating because we've got a guy that's injured. This isn't the first time this year that someone has gotten injured from stupidity on the racetrack. Earlier this year, we saw, I think it was Taylor Gray, who got into Daniel Dye, and Daniel Dye actually ended up suffering some concussion issues. And with things we see in ARCA this year, the lack of respect, someone eventually was going to get hurt, and unfortunately, a driver ended up getting hurt from this, and now they're sitting out because of this. At some point, I think the ARCA officials have got to get involved. And at this point, some of these teams have got to get involved with these drivers. And I think, in my opinion, Thad Moffitt should be repaying for the damages that happened in the 27 car. Because, honestly, it's ridiculous. And I don't blame this team for being mad and frustrated. Because now you have a driver that unfortunately is out because of this situation. Because of lack of awareness and stupidity on the track. And we've seen this time and time again. And it's really frustrating. Hopefully, things change. But I have got a feeling that these younger kids, because they think they get away with all this stuff, I have a really bad feeling that they're going to get away with it, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Kyle Larson. As Kyle Larson has won the World of Outlaws late model race at Sharon Speedway this past weekend. I believe this is Kyle Larson's second late model win ever. He had a late model win earlier this year. Actually, I think second or third ones. I think he won the King's Royal earlier this year. I believe he dominated the race as well. It's been crazy to see what Kyle Larson has been able to do on the racetrack so far this year. Look at what he's been able to do in every series this run. It doesn't matter. He's got 5 Cup Series wins this year, including an All-Star Race win and a Coca-Cola 600 win. He's won the King's Royal. He's won the Prairie's Dirt Classic. He's won the Chili Bowl. He's won the Knoxville Nationals. He's won so many things, and this has been one of the most incredible seasons for a single driver. A lot of people doubt his abilities because he's going up against dirt guys, but you have to remember that a lot of these dirt ringers are not slouches. These guys are really, really talented drivers. Again, I'm so frustrated to see that people are calling these guys slouches because they're not. They're really, really talented drivers, and he's had to go up against a lot of great people. We're going to remember this season for a very, very long time and what Kyle Larson has been able to do. I'm really happy to see that Kyle Larson won this event, and I'm not sure how many more races Kyle Larson is going to go, especially since the playoffs are coming up, and I would assume with the COVID-19 going up in the country, I don't think Kyle Larson is going to run many more races outside of the NASCAR Cup Series, so he can focus on that and keep him safe as well. But really cool to see that Kyle Larson is able to win that event. I wonder how many more races he will run, and good to see that Kyle Larson was able to go to victory in that event. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Christopher Bell. As Christopher Bell is expected to drive the 54 car at Daytona International Speedway this weekend. Christopher Bell has already made a start earlier this year in the 54 car in New Hampshire, where he put on a dominating clinic and was able to pick up his third straight Xfinity Series win at New Hampshire International Speedway. Christopher Bell, I think, is also running his event to get a little bit more experience for the Cup Series, to get a little more better on the Super Speedways. I think he's a very solid Super Speedway racer. He's almost contended for Super Speedway wins in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, but at points this year, he's also been pretty fast in the Cup Series well, and has also made mistakes. You remember the big one that happened at Daytona. I think he's learning to draft as well, and what mistakes that you can't make on the track. He made a mistake earlier this year. But I think Christopher Bell getting a little more experience actually makes a lot of sense, and he can run since, again, he's only in his second year. And in the first years, you can run, I think, up to as many races as you want to, except the final 8 races. I expect Christopher Bell to be pretty competitive. I think that this 54 car will have a really clear shot of contending for the victory. We've seen the Joe Gibbs cars, some are faster. I still think you're going to have to be Junior Motorsports cars and the Call cars win. But I think it's going to be really good experience overall for Christopher Bell, and I think we'll see good things out of him. I'm glad to see that Christopher Bell is going down there and racing and get a little more experience. I hope it helps him this weekend, and wishing him the best. Christopher Bell, wishing the best luck this weekend here at Daytona. Hopefully he will give him enough experience to run well and not make mistakes and cause a big one at Daytona. Hopefully it does not cause any more issues. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about David Starr. As David Starr is expected to drive the 6.6 for MDM Motorsports this weekend here at Daytona in the NASCAR Cup Series. I'm not expecting much from David Starr this weekend. If this car can keep up pace, especially at a track like Daytona, I would expect them, and if they can survive, they may be able to get a good finish out of it. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'm not expecting David Starr to be really, really competitive. The draft will help this team a little bit. I would not be surprised if the 6.6 team would struggle. They failed to qualify the last time they raced Super Speed. I think they failed to qualify for the Daytona 500. I don't think they raced at Talladega. So hopefully David Starr can get this team a really, really good run. I'm not certain how many more races they're going to run. I would assume they're going to run probably most of the playoff races coming up. I'm not exactly sure, but it's cool to see that David Starr is going to be running another event. Hopefully he'll be able to keep up the pace and run really well for the team. It'd be really cool to see if this team could run some more races down the road. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Landon Cassill. As Landon Cassill is going to be driving the number 96 for Gaunt Brothers Racing this weekend in Daytona and at Talladega as well. This will be the first time that Landon Cassill has raced in the NASCAR Cup Series since 2019. I cannot tell you how excited I am to see Landon Cassill back in the NASCAR Cup Series. Even if it's on a super speedway, I am glad to see him. He's been racing full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series this year, where he currently sits in the top 15 in the points. Set a pretty solid year overall in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I don't think JD Motorsports car is that great. I think he's carried that team overall this year. Has done really, really well so far this year. as in regards to running these races, I'm really happy to see that he's coming back to the NASCAR Cup Series. I've been wanting Landon Cassill to get an opportunity to race, whether if it's full-time or part-time. I've been wanting Landon Cassill to make a return to NASCAR at some point. A lot of people have been wanting it too, like myself, and he's very, very popular on social media. So I am really, really happy to see that Landon Cassill is coming back to the Cup Series. And even if it's with Gaunt Brothers Racing, I think it's great for the sport to see a driver like Landon Cassill make a return right there, because I think it's going to be beneficial for the sport as well. And I'm really happy to see he's back, and I've been wanting him to come back to Cup for a long time, regardless of which organization, whether it's good or a bad organization, but just wanting him to get an opportunity to race again. So the fact that he is going to be coming back to the NASCAR Cup Series, at least for a couple races on Super Speedway, is really cool. Now, what are my expectations from? We've seen this 96 car run pretty well. I would not be shocked to see this 96 car maybe even get a top 10 or maybe top 20 this weekend if they can survive the carnage. This car has had a lot of speed. So I think that Landon Cassill is going to have a lot of speed, and we're going to see a lot this weekend. And I'm glad to see that Landon Cassill is going to make his turn to the NASCAR Cup Series in the number 96 car. Happy about that for sure. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Corey LaJoie. As Corey LaJoie has been granted a waiver and is still eligible for the playoffs. For a lot of you that have been following over the last week, Corey LaJoie had basically been in close contact with someone in his studio that had tested positive for COVID-19, and because he's currently not vaccinated at the moment, Corey LaJoie is still in quarantine. Now, he could be eligible to come back this weekend, as in 2 or 3 days' time, he could be able to have a negative test. He could be able to return this weekend. And it makes a lot of sense for NASCAR to give these drivers waivers. NASCAR always seems to grant a waiver to any driver that has this now. If he was to get COVID-19 after the playoffs started, he would not be able to get a waiver, especially if he is outside of the playoffs. But I think NASCAR is making the right call right here, especially with the extreme circumstances that happen right here. And I think it's good to see that they're giving him a waiver, and great to see that he's going to be back. And hopefully we're going to see Corey LaJoie back this weekend. He said he's actually feeling fine. He says he hope his immune system will help him. I think it's good to see, and hopefully we're going to see Corey LaJoie return to the track really, really soon. I think NASCAR, like I said, made the right call right here to give him that waiver, and hopefully he'll be able to return to the track really, really soon. And now we're going to go and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about vaccinated and quarantines. Now, Bob Parker reported earlier this past week, the drivers lobbied NASCAR if they have come in close contact with someone who tests positive that they would be allowed to race with negative tests, but NASCAR keeps policy that if they had close contact, can return in 3 days if vaccinated with negative tests. It's 7 days if you are not vaccinated, though. Now, NASCAR have been basically, a lot of this conversation has been brought up due to the fact of Corey LaJoie unfortunately getting, like I said, getting tested positive. Well, not tested positive, but coming in close contact with someone who had COVID-19 in his studio. A lot of drivers, more drivers, have come out and spoken out in regards if they had gotten vaccinated or not. We know that Joey Logano now has been confirmed he's vaccinated. William Byron and Tyler Reddick has become vaccinated. We know some drivers are not. We also know that Bubba Wallace and Denny Hamlin publicly have been vaccinated as well. And I would not be surprised if more drivers have been vaccinated, but they don't want to say that publicly. I think NASCAR is making the right call to keep it. I know the drivers want to come back and race and stuff, and I understand that they want to lobby to NASCAR to eventually return and stuff. But in my opinion, I think especially with the COVID-19, you don't want to take risks, especially since sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Of course, sometimes it can be really, really quick to know if you have tested positive or not, or if you're asymptomatic or not. If you're not feeling bad, you can return. You're probably going to be fine eventually, but I think NASCAR, again, is making the right call right here to play it safe. Again, I understand the drivers lobbying, especially with the playoffs coming up. And if these drivers, especially a lot of the drivers in the top 20 points, are currently in the NASCAR playoffs, I don't blame them for basically trying to lobby the NASCAR to wanting to get back into the sport as quickly as possible, because the sooner they can get back in, the better. I just think, in my opinion, I think NASCAR should be playing it safe right here. And I think it's good to see that we have some drivers that are becoming vaccinated, especially today, with the Pfizer vaccine basically becoming approved by the FDA today. I would anticipate that there are going to be a lot more drivers that are going to end up getting vaccinated. I think a lot of people in general are going to get vaccinated because of this, and I think that they'll make the right call. So I think NASCAR is making the right call right here, and I think just keep your thoughts and stuff, and just good to see that NASCAR is making the call right here to keep it going. I think let's see NASCAR is keep putting their foot down on that front. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Jesse Iwuji. as Jesse Iwuji is going to be forming a new NASCAR Xfinity Series team in 2022 with Emmitt Smith partnering up with Jesse Iwuji with a team called Jesse Iwuji Motorsports. Manufacturing numbers have not been announced currently, but this team is expected to go full-time next season. It is really cool that Emmitt Smith is coming into the sport. Emmitt Smith is a Hall of Faming running back who I believe is a 4 or 5-time, I think he's got in the Hall of Fame a couple years ago. He's won a couple Pro Bowls. He was actually a Hall of Fame, actually won the MVP for the Super Bowl, I think, back in the 1990s for the Cowboys. He's a guy that's done a lot of stuff in the NFL, and we've been seeing more athletes that have been coming in his sport. Alvin Kamara, who now working in NASCAR overall. You got Michael Jordan, who formed up with 23XI Racing with Bubba Wallace. You've had a Pitbull come in, a celebrity. Tony Robbins may be on his way in as well. And we have, and also Bernie Pollard Jr., who's been also coming as well, not to mention Scott Buescher, who's also forming NASCAR Xfinity Series as well. We've seen a lot more celebrities coming into the sport. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't expect this team to be really competitive, depending on nothing was announced in regards to manufacturers and stuff, but I don't expect this team to be really, really competitive. I'll be honest, I don't think Jesse Iwuji is an absolutely incredible driver. He's not a terrible driver. He's not incompetent out on the track. But Jesse Iwuji does not run up front. He tends to run in the back a lot of these races. He kind of doesn't always get the best out of his equipment. That being said, it wasn't also announced if he's going to be the driver or not. Maybe he isn't going to be the driver. Maybe he's going to bring some drivers in. If he's not the driver, bring in some guys that are free agents, maybe to your team, that kind of help the organization out and to be a little bit more competitive. But I think it is so really, really cool to see that we're going to have another NASCAR Xfinity Series team joining, but I don't expect it to be competitive. But it's good to see, especially with some teams that are maybe going to be downsizing next year. The more people you can get in the sport and the more Xfinity Series teams, the better it is going to be. But eventually, I think it's going to be a lot cheaper to run a NASCAR Cup Series team. Dale Jr. has said that, even though the charters are going to cost a lot, it's going to be cheaper to run the NASCAR Cup Series than is the Xfinity Series. But you're going to want to keep some of these teams, new teams to form in, to keep things flowing right there. So it's really awesome, though, to see that Jesse Iwuji and Emmitt Smith are getting involved in the sport and ownership side of things. This will also be the first time that we're going to see Jesse Iwuji run full-time in a season. So really cool to see this for sure. Wishing his team the best luck, and hopefully they're going to have a really good shot to run up front in some races here later this season. And now we're going to jump on to the first of two major stories of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Worldwide Technology Raceway and the LA Coliseum. It was reported on Friday night before the Truck Series race took place at Gateway International Speedway that NASCAR has held discussions with Worldwide Technology Raceway in recent months about potentially awarding the track a 22 Cup Series race. Per sources, though, the current status of the track is unclear. Adam Stern also reported that the LA Coliseum short track idea is another one NASCAR has continued to explore. Let's first talk about Worldwide Technology Raceway. It was already announced this past week that IndyCar will be going to Worldwide Technology Raceway through the 2026 season. There have been contract talks that those have been going for a long time, and they have been awarded 5 years. You look at Worldwide Technology Raceway, I have been saying this for a long, long time. Worldwide Technology Raceway has deserved. I went to the NASCAR Xfinity Series races back in 2010, which are the last races that I have went to. And I have been saying really since I was a kid back then that this track deserves a Cup Series day. And there's many reasons why I believe that this track deserves a Cup Series day. Number one, it is an untapped market. The St. Louis market is absolutely incredible. Not only that, the racing tends to be pretty good. Look at the IndyCar race that took place this past weekend. Even though it was a lot of cars ended up wrecking out, and it did eventually become a single group track, there was a lot of great racing right there. And look at the Truck Series race that took place as well. Now, the Truck Series race did have electrical issues. Unfortunately, what happened was apparently a truck had basically ran into the transformer, I think, at the racetrack, and a fire had caught onto the transformer in Fairmont City, which caused a lot of issues there. But you look at the attendance as well in the untapped market. The attendance for these races is absolutely crazy. I will admit, though, that the IndyCar attendance compared to previous years was not absolutely the greatest I've ever seen. But I'll be for real. If you have a Cup Series date that takes place here, you're going to get a lot of fans that come out there. On top of that, we're not sure about packages, but NASCAR decides to kind of go to 750, 550 route. This track will be eligible for the 750 horsepower package route. If it's 652, it's not going to be as big of an issue either. So I think this track absolutely deserves it. I've been wanting a Cup Series day for a long time. And if it does get announced that Worldwide Technology Raceway is going to have a Cup Series day, you know for a fact that I am going to that race. I will absolutely 100% go to it and give the track the attention it needs, because I think the track absolutely deserves a Cup Series day, and it's great to see that that is potentially going to happen. In regards to the LA Coliseum, this one is definitely really, really interesting. Now, how realistic is it that NASCAR would go to the LA Coliseum? I'll be honest, I'm not exactly sure how realistic it is going to be. But that market is absolutely really, really big. Now, there is Auto Club Speedway that they're going to be converting to a half-mile track that is about 30 to 40 minutes from the LA area. But I think with how big of a market LA is, you could have two races in areas similar to Nashville. You could have two races that end up taking place in the LA area. And the LA Coliseum is known for having USC games, and also was a home of the LA Rams as well. And it would also, if it was to happen, the LA Coliseum was to happen, it would be the shortest racetrack on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. The shortest track currently are Bristol, which I think is a .526 track, and Martinsville, which is a .533 track. Those are the short tracks currently on the Cup Series schedule. If a race was to happen there, they would be probably like a 3/10 mile racetrack. It'd be very, very short. Now, NASCAR has raced inside stadiums in the past. Back in the early days, they raced at a track at Bowman Gray Stadium. It also gives me a little bit of vibes of the Dodge Speedway in the A games. And I think it would be really, really cool if the LA Coliseum was to happen, especially, like I said, with the market. I guarantee you that it would not only attract the hardcore NASCAR fans, I guarantee you that there are a lot of NASCAR fans that do live in the LA area. But it would also attract a lot of the easy fans as well and bring people inside. If they can't have a street race, because there have been talk maybe there would be a street race in LA, why not bring it inside a stadium? And NASCAR, again, has not released the schedule at the moment. Again, they did say that the schedule was supposed to potentially be released sometime here in the coming months, sometime maybe in like late August, but they've been pushing back. Now they're saying September. The schedule could get released anytime, and I think a lot of the reasons they haven't even released schedule currently at the moment is due to this. I think that they're trying to change stuff again like they did this year. Remember, they really, really changed the schedule this year. They added a dirt track. They have 7 road courses this year. They added a lot of different types of tracks on the schedule and different markets to go out to, like Circuit Americas, among other markets to go out to. And why not having it in a football stadium? That'd be really, really cool. And another short track on the schedule as well. We'll have to wait and see what happens going forward. But if this does happen for both things, I think Worldwide Technology Raceway, I think it's very likely. I think it deserves a Cup Day. LA Coliseum, we'll have to wait and see what happens on that front. But I think it's really interesting that both of those could happen here really, really soon. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we are talking about Erik Jones. Erik Jones is going to be returning to Richard Petty Motorsports in 2022, driving the number 43 car. Nothing else was announced in regards to crew chief sponsorships or anything like that, or even manufacturer as well. Now, Erik Jones has spoken to the media this past week at Indianapolis, and he said they had a deal really, really close to being done, and he said that he was pretty confident that this deal was going to be done. The reason I think that it's taken so long for this deal to get done is due to the fact that there have been talks that they were maybe going to switch over to Toyota, and they were be able to bring some people from the TRD people into that front. But when it was a couple of months ago and it was revealed by Jordan, actually a month ago as a matter of fact, by Jordan Bianchi, that those talks had basically subsided, it basically confirmed that Richard Petty Motorsports is going to be returning to Chevy next year. Now, I absolutely think Erik Jones deserves to go back to Richard Petty Motorsports. I'm really happy to see this again. I do think he deserves better, but I don't think there will be any other really good opportunities for him to go to next year. I just think right now this is the best place for stability-wise for him to go to. Now, I'll be honest about Erik Jones' season. He's not really had that great of a year. People thought coming in this year that Erik Jones is going to do better than Bubba Wallace, and they've been kind of comparable to each other. Erik Jones has had 3 top 10s this year. His best finish is 6th. He currently sits 24th in the NASCAR Cup Series standings, and I believe has a 22.5 average finish. I think he's a little bit better than Bubba Wallace. I think like a 21 average finish, which I think is a little bit better than Bubba Wallace. I think Erik Jones is actually a very, very good driver. I just think a lot of it is due to the fact that the equipment really isn't that good. I don't think the Richard Petty Motorsports equipment is good. Now, that being said, I think he basically mentioned it in his, basically was talking to me, he mentioned, you know, I think stability is really, really important for him, and I think keeping it there, because again, Erik Jones really since the beginning of his career in the Cup Series, I should say, he's been floating around and has had, we've not really known where he was going to end up going. Remember, 2018, a lot of people thought he was going to be out of the 20, and then he returned to 2019. He was let go from Joe Gibbs Racing. They wanted to keep him in Joe Gibbs Racing after 2019, but Levine Family Racing shut down after the 2020 season, and he would end up going over there in 2021 to RPM. And like I said, a lot of people thought he was going to do a lot better. But I think that this is the right call, and I think with the next-gen car coming out next year, I think that this potentially could be a big thing for Erik Jones to overall have a good shot of being really, really competitive, or at least a little bit more competitive. I do think the next car is going to close the gap, especially with a lot of the parts coming from NASCAR. These cars are going to be spec. So I do think that some of these teams, kind of a little bit in the mid-pack, teams like Rich Penny Motorsports, From Row Motorsports, RCR, Trackhouse, 2311, among those, I think that this will be really, really could benefit those teams and make them, I don't think they're going to be ultimately championship contender organization, but I think it will help them out a little bit. Now, let's be honest. Let's talk about expectations for Erik Jones. What are my expectations for him? I think Erik Jones has a realistic shot of finishing in the top 20 in the points if the next-gen car does help. I think he'll get a few more top 5s and top 10s. The biggest thing, though, for Erik Jones going into next year is he's got to find a way to start bringing sponsorship to the team. I think that has been the key problem this year to the team, because last year Richmond Motorsports improved a lot because Bubba Wallace got a lot of sponsors to come to him, and when you had a major sponsor backing you, your team can improve. But because they've had single race-to-race and worldwide technology backing out from the teams, they basically, unfortunately, have kind of taken a step down this year. But I do think with the next-gen car and stability, Erik Jones can overall build up this team and make them a lot better. I'm really happy to see Erik Jones is coming back to this team next year. I think it is absolutely the right call, and I think it was the best fit for him. I know some people have brought up maybe he could have gone to Live Fast Motorsports because he's driven for BJ McLeod's team in NASCAR. But let's be real. Do you want to go to Richard Petty Motorsports, or do you want to take a downturn with Live Fast Motorsports? I think absolutely he has made the right call right here to return to Rich Petty Motorsports next year, and I think it'll benefit this team overall. I'm really happy to see that Erik Jones is going to be returning to this team next year. So, anyway, that is it for today's NASCAR news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, turn notifications to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And support page on the link description below for that, and comment all your thoughts on today's video. What are your thoughts about Erik Jones returning to Rich Petty Motorsports in 2022, and how well do you think he will perform next year? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about the potential of the LA Coliseum and World Technology Raceway coming to the Cup Series schedule in the future? Do you think those tracks do you think LA Coliseum will happen? And do you think World Technology deserves a race or not? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content like this. Take care, everybody.